Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, I'd like to talk about consulate processing and what is necessary in order to do it, and give you some overview of how to do it. Now, first of all, consulate processing is basically a term where someone who qualifies to eventually come into the United States as a lawful permanent resident goes through the consulate or embassy of their home country and goes through the whole procedure in order to eventually get the green card or become a lawful permanent resident. Now, uh, there's different ways of eligibility, and what I'd like to do is concentrate more on the family-based way of consulate processing, although theoretically a lot of the same parameters exist, even if it is through employment-based or through an I-140 and so forth. But just so it's clear, let's just do the I-130 first. Now, I'd like to screen share some stuff with you so you can see more or less what is going on and what is necessary in order to properly do uh, the consulate processing. Now, first, let me just go to the screen here. Hopefully you can see it. Um, the consulate processing guide, basically, these are the overview of the steps that is necessary. Now, in this particular case, you start off filing an I-130, so that would be when there's a qualifying relationship under immigration law in which to be able to petition, whether it's a spouse or whether it's a son petitioning, a parent or and so forth. And I have other videos on the preference system and who can petition whom. But for all intents and purposes, just say that now you know that an I-130 is what starts the process. Now, if you're not going to adjust status, you want to make sure that the Part C-22 is essentially not completed. That is the place that says primarily you're going to adjust status, and this is the place you're going to adjust status, which would be inside the United States. What's going to happen is if you complete that section, the after approval of the I-130, and when the visa number becomes current, what will happen is they being USCIS, will not forward the petition to NVC, and that's the National Visa Center. And the National Visa Center is the one who takes care of essentially gathering all of the information and documents needed and the fees so that it can then be transferred over to the U.S. consulate or U.S. embassy. So, if you accidentally fill out that part when when you intend to do consular processing, whether you want to or not, if you are not eligible to do an adjustment of status, then what's going to happen is it's going to delay the whole process for many months, because then, as you can see down here, you're going to have to file an I-824 with USCIS, and that doesn't get a whole lot of priority. So what that is you're going to file a petition with USCIS essentially saying, please forward this application to the NBC, and that could delay the whole process 6 months to a year. So make sure that if you're going to do consulate processing, that part is not completed. And then, of course, along with the I-130, and this is not a tutorial on how to do everything from square one to square 100, but just giving a general idea so there's a better understanding. So the G325 and passport photos, the passport photos especially are only required for spousal petitions on the I-130, and then for lockbox filings you do the 1145. Now, what happens when the I-130 is approved and the visa number is about to be current. Generally, when I say about to be current, if it's within about 6 months, it will be sent to the NVC. So what happens is the NVC will get a notification from the USCIS saying that a 9130 is approved, and what happens is the NVC, or National Visa Center, which, for all intents and purposes, they're really like an agent of the consulate. Okay, they do all the hard work, at least to start off, and so when the consulate gets the case, everything's pretty much there, except of course the originals and so forth. But so you want to, when it gets to the NVC, what will happen is they are going to generate, especially if an attorney is already on file, they're going to generate an email which is going to come to the attorney, and it's going to essentially say that the case is started. So let me see if I can get you a copy of that up. So here's, let me load this up here. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. This would be, once it loads, this would be a sample of an email that I would receive, for example, if I was already representing the client. So if I did I-130 and of course I had my G28 name, in my email, and again, this is not sent to me via mail, it's email. So in my email, I get this particular notice from the NBC, which essentially gives the case number and the name and so forth, and then it lets me know essentially what needs to be done. But at least with the case number and so forth, I can go online at this particular address, ceac.state.gov. I will be able to log on as the attorney. I can log on and select I'm the attorney, and I'll get the NVC number, which was above, and then of course the case ID number is below here. Where this is the case ID number, and it says what I'm, going to be paying. So normally what will happen is, it'll list everything right here. I will then go to the client and get the necessary funds in order to properly get the case started. And then what will happen is, after I fill out the initial part, which is what I just did. Let me show you what this is. This is where I actually sign in to do it. Okay, this is the immigrant visa sign-in page, and it includes, of course, the case number, the ID number, and it says I'm the attorney. And then I will continue, and that's where I will get the necessary fees paid and get the process rolling in order to go forward. Now, let me just show you what it states. Now, once the fees and so forth are paid, it specifically says here that after the fees, that the applicant and any accompanying applicant will have to complete the immigrant visa application, which is now on Form DS-260. Now, Form DS-260 is actually all done online. Okay, it is not filled out and then mailed in. It used to be, but it's not anymore. And so what I do with my office, let's just stop here for a second. What I do with my office is the clients basically fill out, this is an online web portal, and they essentially fill out the online web portal. This is just the first part of it, but then what happens is we can then take this information from the online web portal that we have, and transfer it once we've logged on to the online DS260. Now you're wondering, what does the online DS260 look like? Let me tell you. This here is an exemplar of the DS260, and this is again done all online, and it doesn't all have to be completed at one time, because generally it can't be completed at one time. Either you don't have time, or my firm, when someone's working on it, they either don't have time to do the whole thing in one sitting, or, as is mostly the case, there are certain things missing which we need to go back and get from the client. So it's actually quite lengthy, but here again is where they sign in, and again, I would, as the attorney, I would sign in, let them know I'm the attorney, and then we start filling in the necessary information. This is sort of a overview of everything that needs to be done in order to complete it. But you can see that this is just the fake name that is on here. But you pay the fee, and then the all the documents that go along with this, they're mailed in. Okay, and generally speaking, they will be mailed in after you finish the online DS260 and submit it in final. Now, there are exceptions to mailing in the supporting documents, and that would be, let's go back here now. If, let's see, where's it? Okay, now, if documents begin with AKD, and this is the case number, okay, if it begins with AKD, AMM, DMS, GZO, MEP, or SAA, those are all kind of funny initials if you think about it, but if the case number, which always starts with 3 alphabetic characters, starts with any one of these items, then it must be emailed to the NVC, all of the supporting documentation. So, what my office does, we just scan it in, and there's no problem emailing it. We just scan it in and then email the attachment. And I suspect that as time goes on, there'll be much more items, much more of these initials that will be allowed to email them in. It's probably in its initial type phase where they're making sure that procedurally they can do everything, but I certainly foresee that in the future, eventually everything's going to be emailed in, so get yourself a nice scanner. It makes it a lot easier. So back to the sample DS260. Once all that's paid and so forth, you can see that here there's the spouse and 3 children that are coming along. It shows all the fees have been paid, and then of course the nothing has been completed basically. Although this is the one of the children in this sample has been completed, but it hasn't been filed yet. And you just click edit here, and it'll go and let you complete it. But when you click start, it goes and starts letting you fill in all of the necessary information. Okay, it does give lots of instructions and so forth what to do, and you read it all. Continue, and again, if my firm's doing it, we just hop on past all that and get to the point where we actually start filling out the information. And here you can see a lot of this is biographical type stuff, all done in online. And again, if you're not ready to submit it in final, which very rarely will happen in one sitting, you just click save, and then go back up here again, and then what will happen is it'll show that it's incomplete, but you just can edit it and continue where you left off. And so back down to, I hope I'm not making you dizzy here. Okay, back down to where it fills out the various information. You can see basically it entitles what it is. A lot of it's just personal biographical type information to start off, and again continuing on page 2, so forth. And it asks everything that needs to be asked in order to make a complete packet. Okay, lots of questions here. If you happen to fill, if you're doing this yourself and you happen to fill out the wrong box and the wrong information, it could have very serious consequences at a later point because depending on your particular case, all kinds of issues and flags can be raised. So the fact that it happens to be online here doesn't mean you should be any less careful with what needs to be done. And in fact, if there's any questionable issues about your case, you should definitely have an attorney do it. But here we go. And again, more, this is the address type information, is present, previous address, and so forth. And then you can see it's got 3 different pages alone on address information. Actually, let's make that 4. There's quite a bit. 5. Okay, they want to know where you are. Okay, they want to have all the necessary contact information. Okay, so now we go to family information, parent page, and you put all the information regarding your parents. Same with this particular one, and this one also. Lots of information regarding the parents. You can see that they're very, very thorough, and that's why you can see this also takes a long time to go forward and do, because there is so much information required. But you have to be careful and make sure every single item that needs to be answered is answered, and that it is answered correctly. Obviously, if you're working in a firm doing this for an attorney, you need to be sure you don't guess on anything, that if there are issues, questions, ambiguities, you need to ask the attorney to make sure that it is done properly. And then here's the spouse page. Obviously, if you have a spouse, you fill it out. If you don't, then you'll just click no on the spouse information. There's a few pages on the spouse. You can see that this TSU 60 is quite lengthy. I'm sure you're seeing that on previous spouse page, so if you were previously married, this will take more time, but if not, don't worry about it. This gives all the information on the previous spouse, and then the children. So obviously, the more children you have who qualify to immigrate into the United States, the longer this will take. But if they're going to age out, they're not under the CSPA, you want to see if you can get the consulate processing expedited, which is possible. If they're not under the CSPA and they're about to age out, you can certainly do expedite petitions to try to get them in. I've found generally consulate and embassies are amenable to helping you out in that regard, especially since the Supreme Court just came out essentially denying certain provisions of the CSPA, making it harder if you do age out. So keep that in mind. Okay, so again, here's the previous U.S. travel information. They want to know where you've been outside the United States. And then we get to the work, education, and training section. And that's where we put what you did, what you're doing, work experience, all of that. You can see this is a very complete application. Again, work experience, they usually want to have work experience for the past 5 years. So if you've worked at one place for the last 5 years, good for you, and it'll take shorter to fill it out. If you've worked, 3 months at a time at different jobs, well, this is going to take you a long time to fill out. So this is all, again, the various education, training information. You can see they do put quite a bit into that. Okay, this is especially important if you happen to be petitioning in on a employment-based visa, although, again, it still has to be filled out either way, whether it's a family-based or employment-based. And we're still on the work training information. They do leave quite a bit of information that you would, space to put in all the previous jobs. And is there anything since you were over 14, for the last several years? Okay, and then we're still doing additional work and training info. It looks like as we're going through this, probably 30% of the application is going through this, so they know that people worked a lot. They, part of it obviously is for security, others for historical information, and then the petitioner information page. Okay, so all of this can be confusing for sure if you do this yourself. Who's the petitioner, who's the beneficiary, who's the applicant. That thing that again, if you have the attorney do it, it's not too big of a deal. And if, again, I want to stress, if you're, for example, a paralegal or legal assistant working for a law firm filling this out, you do not want to guess on anything. You want to make 100% sure that if you have any issues or questions, you just ask the attorney or email your attorney. It is much better to get it done right than to have to try to explain later why it wasn't done. So here's medical and health information. If certain things are filled out here to show inadmissibility, a waiver is going to be needed. But yet, the medicals are required along with the interview, and here's the criminal information page. Obviously, if you have crimes, certain information needs to be given, and you don't want to just say, just disclose without properly consulting with an attorney. You need to see if there's, waivers that need to be done, or for example, if you were under 18 at the time, and depending, it could be considered a not actually a conviction, and so forth. And the question becomes what to show about when you were a minor, pre-adult incidences that may have happened. And then here's the security page. Obviously, if you answer yes to any of these, you're most likely not coming into the U.S. Um, but obviously, you don't want to lie either or make misrepresentations. So all of this, and then these are the addendums that will explain anything you might have said yes to, which of course would be applicable up higher to the criminal section. And then more on the security. You can see, look, we're on page 57 of this right now, so you can definitely see that a DS-260, as I've said before, is full, complete, and no way you're going to be completing this in one day. But, if you at least with my firm again, and let me click back here. When all this is filled out, and again, this is just the first part of it, but when the DS-230, which is what used to be done, you can see from the number here on the bottom, it does help with transferring a lot of the information into the DS-260 when we're helping to fill out. And then more information regarding various grounds of inadmissibility, but again, many of these grounds can be waived depending on it. So if there's any issues at all, and you don't have an absolutely clean case, you're going to want to definitely get an attorney. Even if you have a clean case, it can be quite complicated with what you have to do. So it's kind of like insurance when you get an attorney who knows what they're doing. Just make sure it's done right. Okay, and immigration law violations, all kinds of stuff on here showing possible inadmissibility and so forth. And then explaining these various grounds of inadmissibility, where normally I'll include it in the cover letter, but I can also include it here as to what grounds of inadmissibility might exist and what waivers will be filed or have been filed type thing, whether it's a provisional waiver and so forth. Again, all this on various grounds of inadmissibility and crimes and so forth. And Social Security information page again. More information on making sure they have a whole history of you, that they can run everything through the database. So if you think you're going to be able to hide something, not a good idea. Okay, and we're almost getting to the end here, and then at the end is the sign and submit page, where basically, of course, the client will log in and be able to put the various information here and then submit it, so that it shows that they have reviewed everything, that they agree with everything that was submitted, and that they will that everything is true and accurate, which is why I make sure that when my clients, of course, click the submit key, that they have gone over it thoroughly, and if there's any issues, they let us know. We change it accordingly, and go from there. And then here's all kinds of legal information, regarding how long this takes and so forth. So that is the sample that I wanted to show you. That took a little while to go through, but I wanted to make sure that you saw it. So that's where we've gone over now all of this, where they pay the immigrant visa fee and the affidavit support fee. Now, what about the documents that, at least for now, most of the time you'll be mailing in. Well, here is actually a web page on the U.S. Department of State, and here it gives all the documents that need to be submitted based upon typical case. Now, I do have to emphasize that some consulates are more particular and they want more of some particular document than others. Others are very ambiguous. So this is where you start. Okay, this website from the NBC regarding the photocopy requirements and that they have to be certified type stuff. But and that basically anything that has anything other than English on it, the whole page needs to be translated, not just the word for 2 words. So keep that in mind. So here, are the required documents, at least from the NBC database. So you need to get a photocopy of a valid passport biographic database. So, if obviously if you're coming in the U.S., you will have a passport. So make sure you get a copy of that biographic database, and then the photographs, you need to get 2 of them, and they need to be done at a certain size, certain angle, all that stuff. But that needs to be done. Birth certificate, basically from you and family members that are coming to the United States. Keep in mind here what it says here, that you must submit the long form original birth certificate, not the short form birth certificate. A lot of fraud has gone on, and they want to make sure you are who you say you are. Same with all the children and people coming along with you. This lists all the items that must be in the birth certificate, and then it even gives things that can be retrieved if you can't get your birth certificate for one reason or another. These are secondary documents that are allowed to be given. If there's an adoption, of course, all of the various adoption documents need to be submitted. If there is a marriage, then you need to submit, of course, all the marriage certificates and so forth, as well as if you've been divorced, all the termination documentation showing the marriage no longer existed. They want to make sure that you have not tried to marry again when your spouse is already married. That, of course, is bigamy and it's a crime. So, all of that needs to be done if you're in the military, all of the military documents. And then the police certificate. If you're over 16 years old, you need to submit police certificates that cover your time that you were in that particular area. So if you moved around, for example, because your father was, in the military, and you've lived in, 6 different countries before, you wanted to come to the U.S. for a period of 1 year each or 2 years each or whatever it is, you need police certificates from all those countries. And that's not easy to obtain, so each country is different. You need to find out how to obtain a police certificate from the country. Now, they have a table here, okay, which I'm not going to go to right now, but they have a table that basically says what organization you need to go to and what you need to do. So at least this site from the NBC helps you get the information you need in order to get the police certificates. And then you need, and this gives, right here, this gives if you need a police certificate or not from the various jurisdictions that you lived in. So again, if the attorney is doing this, they'll know which jurisdiction, what questions to ask you to know which one to get. And of course, you need generally all court and prison records. They need to see if you are inadmissible, and then of course if you were arrested but not convicted, of course that still needs to be presented. But my firm will do is explain why that's not a conviction for immigration purposes, or if it is, what type of waiver you might qualify for. And then here are various information that might be needed depending who you are applying for and so forth. Okay, and then if you've been deported, you of course need to give the necessary information. But more importantly, you need to have a Form I-212, which is permission to reapply, hopefully submitted and approved. And if it doesn't happen to be approved by the time you complete this. Hopefully it will be by the time you have the interview, and that all helps because you might have everything else ready to go, but you might not be able to come in because you didn't get the permission to reapply after deportation approved. Okay, so let's see where we are in this. So we just finished the required documentation. Okay. Um, Now, once the required documentation is sent in and the fees are paid and so forth, you can, of course, request a provisional waiver to be done. Essentially, the way you would do it is notify through the proper means the NBC that you are intending on filing a provisional waiver and provide all the necessary information to qualify. And then what they will do is they will put a hold on processing it until either 6 months or the provisional waiver is approved. So hopefully it'll get approved within that time, and then you go from there. And what will happen is after all this is done, the NBC will then forward everything off to the consulate or the embassy, upon which a interview will be scheduled, and you'll need to, of course, go to the get the medical examination, and you should go to the consulate website for depending where it is. And I have a couple here I can show you. Like, for example, here's one from the Philippines. It's not real specific on what needs to be done, but it does give some instructions. Okay, and then I have another one. Let me load up here. Like, for example, let me load up this example. This is one from Cida Juarez, and when you get on the website, they basically will just allow you to click a link, and sorry, and the link will list the various documents that will be needed. It's taking a while to load this up. Here it is. Let me get to the part here that is issue here. Of course, see it as I basically say, don't talk to anybody, don't give anybody anything. But if you keep going down, and this is all on the website here. Okay, basically it gives you instructions specific to this consulate, which may be the same as what I already went over, but you of course can see that it again requires a long form birth certificate, not an abstract, and the original of the marriage certificate and so forth. It lists various things, so keep that in mind. And then let me go back for a minute. I showed you the email that I get, which basically starts the case. Well, what happens after it gets started and you pay the fees and you submit the documentation within about 30 days to 1 to 3 months, give or take, if there's something missing, I will get another email, and this is it. I'll get an email, and it will list the case number and so forth, and it will say that certain things are missing. So here you can see, there's financial evidence that's missing. We need some more of the passport, biographic data page on the passport, birth certificate. There's certain things that are missing, and so all of that gets sent back in a timely manner with whose case it is and so forth, and then from there, hopefully everything will have been properly submitted. And then from here, if you don't qualify for a provisional waiver, then what will happen is you'll have the visa interview where they'll determine eligibility and everything else, except if you need to have a waiver filed or the permission to reapply, they'll let you know, and then of course you'll file it there in the proper jurisdiction, and that will be done. So that, in a nutshell, is what needs to be done for consulate processing. Okay, and I know I've gone through a lot of documents and a lot of information, but that's what needs to be done. So if you have any questions, email me, click like on the video if you like. I usually do videos once a week, and we'll do more coming up. Okay, thank you.